Hi, it's Rhonda Frisha from Tutor Doctor Towson. Today I want to talk about some educational terms, and by no means do I consider my list to be exhaustive, and it's not very technical. It's kind of meant to be understood by lay people like me. Now, I have a roster of tutors who are educators. Some of them are studying to be educators, some of them are retired educators, and some of them are professionals in their field already. But this list is just kind of for us common folk. So I welcome any clarification that tutors might like to provide in the comments below, or other educators. First, let's talk about assessments and benchmarks. So over the course of their education, you or your child are going to have a number of assessments. And there are assessments where you're going to be compared to how you did last time. So that's a measurement of your progress, right? There are also assessments that are going to be against benchmarks. So benchmarks would be, for instance, where we expect a fifth grader to be in understanding of fractions at the beginning of the year or the end of the year, whatever it might be. So those are benchmarks, and that's what our statewide testing is all about. Collaborative or team teaching, you may not realize it, but in your child's class, especially with the online learning, they may be being taught by more than one teacher at a time. So a team of teachers may be working with the kids, and they may be kind of pulling them aside and going over, if it's remote, they could be kind of texting on the screen so that they're not talking and everybody's hearing it in the group. It's just between the two of them. Scaffolding is something we talk about when we're talking about building those educational building blocks. So if you think about a scaffold on a building, it's going to be up to a certain level while you're working on this floor, and then you're going to build it a little higher to work on the higher floors. So it's essential that you have those lower scaffolds to hold up the higher parts. So it's also another way of saying we break down tasks into smaller tasks to make something more manageable. Hybrid learning in the context of 2021 means learning that is online and in person. So you might even be going to a school to have online learning. And that's what we mean by hybrid learning in the year 2021. STEM and STEAM mean essentially the same thing: science, technology, engineering, and math. They're all the mathy classes. And STEAM is just the addition of art and design, which, if you think about it in modern terms, art is a very, digital, electronic thing. You might have different tracks at your school, an honors track or an AP track, or you may even be in a dual enrollment. The difference between honors and AP, think of honors as a deeper dive into a subject. So if we're both taking chemistry, but you're taking honors chemistry, you're going to learn the same subject matter, but you're going to learn it a little deeper. If you're taking AP chemistry, you're actually going to be learning more subject matter. You're going to be learning the subject matter that we might expect to see at a college level, and therefore those classes probably count toward college credits. Back with page 2. Competency, you may already know the meaning of, just means you get it. If you're competent, you get it. Competency means something equivalent to mastery, maybe just below. Competency-based means something different. Competency-based education, think of it as self-paced learning. I grew up with SRA, where we kind of read at our own pace and we got to wherever we got. That's the way you should think of competency-based. Enrichment is another kind of read between the lines word. When I see this word, I think you're already rich, you want to get richer. In other words, you already have some level of mastery of this thing and you're just going to improve it. Learning loss. So if we, I have another video on this, but if we stop learning in June, and here's the content that we learned over the course of the year, we're going to have some learning loss before we come back in September. So some people go back over the summer, maybe for enrichment, or maybe just to stay fresh, just to keep all their learning gears still turning. of course, COVID brought with it a whole new level of learning loss. IEP plans and 504 plans. If this is something you're considering for your child because you feel like they need some extra help to succeed, do look into getting a consultant who specializes in this stuff, not me. If you are a consultant, put your information down in the comments. But an IEP consultant can tell you how to have your individual education plan worded for your child so that they can be the most successful. A 504 plan is sort of an IEP plan without the term special education. So in a plan such as those, either one, you might have accommodations. Accommodations can range anywhere from extra time given on tests, or getting to wear headphones during independent study time. There's just a whole range of accommodations. Don't worry if your child wouldn't benefit from one of those two. There are accommodations that can help every type of learner. Supports, there are different supports that the school can provide. Among them, and by no means limited to these two, are speech therapy and occupational therapy. So if your child had developmental delays and maybe doesn't have their speech fully developed, maybe they mispronounce things still, are hard to understand, speech therapists can be provided in an IEP. Occupational therapist, don't be fooled by the name. An occupational therapist isn't anything to do with like learning job skills. They help with things like fine motor skills, like even learning how to hold and control a pencil. Something you might take for granted, but something that may come harder to your child. Modifications are a little bit different. Think of modifications as just lowering the expectations. We don't expect this anymore, now we expect this. Last page. A BIP is a behavioral intervention plan. So you may have even thought, I have to homeschool my child because they're so ill-behaved. Well, there are plans for children who have behavioral issues and ways that educators work to incent or maybe even distract them from their behaviors, like stop them as they're happening before they get overblown. Developmental delays are something children might have, I think up to like age 7, they call it that. After that, it's less of course they're still developing after that, but after that it may be known as an intellectual disability. And the more acceptable term for all the different learning differences that children have, whether it's dyslexia or ADD, ADHD, intellectual disabilities, we now put them all under the heading of exceptionalities. They are known as exceptional learners because they're, exceptions to the rule. Most kids fit under one heading, they fit under a different. Sensory diet, last one, is not what you might think. Some children, especially if they're on the spectrum, might have special sensory needs. So even though it's hard for standardly abled, I forget the term for people that fit in the normal category, even though it's hard for us to understand how this helps them, it helps them to feel where they are in space. So doing wall push-ups or chair push-ups during the course of the day actually gives them enough stimulus that they can get back on track and focus again. So kids may have a sensory diet recommended by a therapist or a special educator, and it just means basically a list of activities that they can do throughout the day to stay on track. So I hope you found some of this helpful, and I hope that you'll think of something I didn't put on the list and either ask or answer what it is. So put that in the comments down below. I'd love to hear from you. Again, I'm Rhonda Frisha from Tutor Doctor, and you're looking at my Tutor Doctor whiteboard. Talk to you later. Bye.